morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the Charity of the Year Rise and Shine session. That's 10:30, so I think we're just going to get started. I'd like to welcome everybody for attending today. Welcome to those who have joined. Welcome to our panelists. A little bit of housekeeping as we get started here. This is our Rise and Shine webinar for the Charity of the Year, and today I'm very privileged to be hosting the finalists for the Charity of the Year Awards, sponsored by Keegan and Penny Kids. This is the biggie, so thank you all for tuning in. If you've attended any previous Rise and Shine events like this, you will know that these webinars are a unique opportunity to hear from organisations who have thrived despite the odds during the pandemic. My name is Lorna Forrest. I'm Head of Service Delivery at SCVO. I'm responsible for our payroll service, Good Moves, our jobs creation service, and Community Jobs Scotland, our employability programme for young people. We're running this event today as a webinar, so those attending who've joined, we won't be able to see or hear you, but you are welcome to put questions or thoughts in the chat or the Q&A function. Our panelists today, you will be able to see and hear, thankfully, and they will be giving us a bit of a flavour of their organisation over the last 12 months. Fingers crossed there's not going to be any technology hiccups, but I've asked the panelists if you can stay on mute until you're speaking. I also can't guarantee we won't have any mischievous pets appear. I know some of us have pets or doorbells ringing, so if that is the case, please bear with us. So sit back, relax, and let's start our day or continue our day with some practical tips and inspiration from these 6 amazing finalists who are going to reflect on 12 months where they've faced extreme challenges, but reveal how they've excelled in this ever-changing landscape. I should note we are recording this Rise and Shine webinar, and it will appear on SCVO's YouTube channel afterwards for those who couldn't attend. So hello to everyone watching on demand. We're also going to use parts of the recording to help promote the awards ceremony itself, and I'll tell you a bit more about that later. I should also note that the judging and voting has now closed, so these events will not influence the final result in any way. So joining us today will be Leah Black from Real Arts, Victoria Buchanan from Edinburgh Children's Hospital Charity, Kirsteen Campbell from the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and Charlie Johnson from Scran Academy, Paddy Mckenna from Castleton Housing Association, and Kathleen West from West Lothian Food Bank. So welcome all. So enough from me, let's get cracking. We've got about 45 minutes and lots to get through and lots to hear in that time. So first of all, I'm going to ask every panelist to give us a quick introduction, a kind of 90-second summary or so of your application, and we'll just do it in alphabetical order. I think that's easiest. So I will start by inviting Leah Black from Real Arts. Tell us a bit about your organisation.
Hi, oh, sorry, can you hear me okay? I think I've lost my connection. Yeah, is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Okay, grand. Grand, thank you, Lorna. So we applied because we were just as a team really proud of the way that we'd responded to COVID-19, and we really did lots of adapting, as a lot of other charities had done as well. We were so concerned about mental health locally and family relationships under increased pressure as a result of all the multiple lockdowns. So we acted really quickly and collaboratively to mitigate against all those feelings of loneliness, isolation and disconnection from the community. So we quickly reviewed and adapted our activities in response to the needs of our community. So we did a whole load of things, running arts and crafts classes online, delivering hot meals, art packs, wellbeing packs and food packages. We continued to contact people for a chat. So we did friendship calls and we have done that throughout the multiple lockdowns, and also work with partners to distribute lots of laptops, phones, tablets and data, and also some small grants that we distributed locally as well. So £20,000 of small grants. So yeah, that's kind of summary of what we did. And we're just so proud of what we've achieved over the last year and a half.
Wow, thank you very much, Leah. Lots in there. And certainly isolation and loneliness has affected everybody, I think, at some point. So yeah, I'm sure you'll tell us lots more about that shortly. Let's move on then, if that's okay, to Victoria from Edinburgh Children's Hospital Charity.
Thank you, Lorna. Good morning, everybody. Well, we applied to be Charity of the Year. We're delighted to be shortlisted. Our application was about the fact that no child wants to be so ill that they need hospital care, especially during a pandemic. And while the hospital playrooms closed and visiting restrictions were reduced to only one family member, face-to-face appointments and treatments for children were indefinitely paused, and hundreds of children with chronic conditions were asked to shield at home. Edinburgh Children's Hospital Charity responded by asking one key question: what do children need? And our child first, patient second mission was never more critical. We delivered 3,000 emergency care packs to children's homes. We funded medical equipment to allow remote clinics for children. We produced a film explaining the need for PPE. We installed a giant inflatable octopus through the old sick kids building windows. And it is with the help of our partners, our volunteers, and of course our supporters that ECHC rallied, and we were able to provide the best medical care to reduce children's fear, to reduce their isolation again, and hopefully bring lots of fun and laughter to ensure that it was a case of children first, patient second throughout the whole pandemic, and to support children through the toughest of times. And we're delighted to be shortlisted in recognition of all that work.
Thank you, Victoria. I love that mantra, children first, patients second. And desperate to hear more about the giant inflatable octopus. As someone,
we're still got the scars.
Oh, I bet.
Showing it through windows.
Pictures, please. Okay, moving on. Let's hear from Kirsteen Campbell from the Scottish SPCA.
Thank you so much, Lorna. Goodness, there's common themes already. We are absolutely thrilled, Scottish SPCA, to be shortlisted. Also, we operate in every single community in Scotland, every single day, 7 in the morning till at least 9 at night. We're unique because part of our role we see as animals and investigate cruelty. We knew that things were only going to get worse. So when other people were forced to close, we knew we had to keep going. We knew there was going to be more animals in need, and behind every animal is a person in need. We help tens and tens of thousands of people every single year, people facing financial challenges, poverty. There's a clear link with domestic violence, which escalated in the pandemic with abuse of animals. We knew we had to keep going, and how were we going to do that? So it was absolutely about the team, investing in the team, the health, safety, the well-being, improving our communications, investing in technology, being more connected than ever, and agile working, different people doing different jobs. We innovated our services because we had to cope with this overwhelming demand, fostering services, rehoming online, things that were unimaginable before the pandemic. We delivered our education services online. We worked with partners like Bernardo's and Police Scotland to make sure we could reach young people who didn't have access to the internet. We had public awareness campaigns to talk about the link between domestic violence and animal cruelty, and many other things. One of the amazing things we were able to do was influence changes in legislation that protected and enhanced rights for animals, and that came in last year with unanimous support from the Scottish Parliament. That has made life better for animals and people. Our finances were as efficient as we could be, and we flipped to a lot of digital fundraising. We checked in with our supporters and did so many things that so many others did. We would not be here without an amazing team, volunteers, which trebled in the pandemic, supporters, and our partners. Partnership work has been so critical and so key. And so we're really proud to be here today, but actually it's representing so many other people who've helped us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsteen. Yes, I think you've touched on some themes that we'll definitely talk about in more depth. And I know getting a puppy myself during lockdown, I wasn't alone in that, certainly. And some of the horrific stories about the puppy trade and such like since then is, yeah, awful. So, okay, thank you. Let's move on then to Charlie Johnson from Scran Academy.
Hi. So yeah, we're completely blown away by the fact that we've been even considered for this award. 2020 was actually Scran Academy's first year as a SCIO. We were a KIC previously, and it was a completely transformative year for us. Just to give a bit of context, In March 2020, we were a team of 2 part-time members of staff running we dislike the term, but it's the easiest way to describe it, an alternative education program for young people in North Edinburgh. We work with 12 young people every year. And over the course of the first lockdown, we supported over 3,500 people with hot meals. That's over 150,000 individual meals given out during that time. I guess we were one of the first people to respond locally, and we just wanted to prove that locally led groups in disadvantaged areas can have significant impact. This was only possible because we worked in partnership with a whole bunch of different organizations and over 200 volunteers. So despite doing that, we also continue to maintain and develop our relationships with young people, and our young people played a significant role in the recruitment of our new staff team, chose our branding and led services where we earn our income. So we're a social enterprise at heart. We launched our Scran Cafe in partnership with the NHS, and the Scran van, which its mission is to tackle holiday hunger, specifically citywide. And both those operations provide meaningful work and leadership experience for young people. We also sold 222 hampers in our Christmas hamper campaign. The previous year in 2019, we sold 38, I think. So it's been a year of real growth for us. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you, Charlie. Yes, the story of growth is brilliant. And Scran Ban, I love it. I love it. But let's hear more shortly. For now, let's move on to Paddy Mckenna from Castleton Housing Association.
Hi there, thanks very much, and just kind of echoing what a lot of people are saying, we're really honoured to be here on behalf of our volunteers and our board and full staff team. So similar to kind of what folk are saying, there was a huge amount of new kind of projects that were developed and delivered across COVID and across the last year. And I think the kind of heart of our application was how we did that. So and amongst everything that we delivered, we maintained a kind of doing with rather than a doing to. So as you can imagine, there was multiple people who wanted to support with the emergency food response that we were coordinating in partnership. And we, instead of saying, no, you can, you need to keep yourself safe, we created ways for them to get involved, which I'll hopefully tell you a bit more about later. We listened to what community members and local organisations were saying and responded. An example was digital inclusion, which again was an issue that we worked in for a number of years, as have most people here probably. And what we were hearing was we don't have a device, we don't have Wi-Fi in the house, and also other partner organisations, including ourselves, saying, what is Zoom, what is this Google Jamboard, how do we possibly support people when we don't really know how these resources work ourselves. So we put training in place across the community for any local organisation so that they were enabled to continue their support. Like everyone else here as well, we adapted all our weekly activities, such as community gardening. Our huge woodland project somehow went online with virtual woodland walks, doggy days, foraging online, art workshops online, a whole host of things, and we didn't cancel one of them from the get-go. They were all just adapted to be online in very creative, didn't always work, but very creative ways. We were proactive, and we knew that the issues that we see every day in the communities that we work in would be amplified, so particularly food and fuel insecurity and poverty. So we quickly got the funding in, so about £35,000 specifically for food and fuel vouchers, so that when people needed it, then the support was there, it was available to them. We created spaces for sharing and collaborative work so that together we could respond to this and all the other issues. So whether that was collaborating with community members about their ideas and getting funding for them to start their own, or other organisations, it was definitely how we could get this done was that kind of ethos. So yeah, across all the projects we did with rather than to, we listened and responded, we adapted. we're proactive and creative, and we create spaces for really meaningful participation, I think, and sharing and collaborative work across the full projects that we've delivered.
Lovely, thank you, Paddy. It never fails to amaze me just how people and organisations across Scotland not only continued to provide services, but adapted and diversified and expanded services. It's just crucial, really. So, okay, and then last but by no means least, let's move to Kathleen West from West Lothian Food Bank.
Actually, Kathleen Neely from West Lothian Food Bank. I don't know where that came from. We are absolutely delighted to be nominated. What a year and a half we've had, nearly 2 years. We very quickly had to change our whole food bank model. We changed to a delivery service pretty much overnight and did 5,000 deliveries in that first year to make sure that people didn't have to leave their home to get food. We also provided fresh food along with that, as well as ready meals so that they could get something to eat straight away. We quickly realised that there was other people doing food as well, so we started coordinating the food network for West Lothian, and that's now 30 other organisations that have come together, and through the whole organisation, all the organisations, we were feeding about 4,000 a week, which is about 2 million meals since COVID kicked off, and we've done 1,000 deliveries to the community partners as well. We've also done our Christmas packs and our toy packs as well. We've set up a CAP debt centre so that we can actually help people get to the root of the problem, why they're in poverty. It's just been an immense 2 years, and I'm so proud of our team that we just took every challenge and just kept running with it and created new ideas and new partnerships to get going. It's been absolutely amazing to watch.
Thanks, Kathleen. I can tell that how proud you are. I can just tell from your voice there. 2 million meals, my goodness. Well done, what an achievement. Okay, so now we've heard a short snippet from everybody. We're just going to go into a bit of a discussion to find out a bit more about achievements and what organisations have learned throughout the year, and really to pass on some tips and advice about how to celebrate successes. So again, I'll just come round everyone one by one. We don't have a lot of time, but give us a quick flavour. I think we've maybe lost Leah for the moment, so I'll come initially to Victoria, if that's okay. And just tell us, what was your biggest achievement during the year of your application?
Yeah, I think our biggest achievement was probably similar to others in that the whole organisation adapted. And we all rallied. So I'm in the fundraising team, so obviously a lot of our income was wiped out overnight. We rely very much historically on traditional community and events fundraising at ECHC, and unrestricted, that would be unrestricted income. So all of that kind of went, so we had to rebuild our fundraising strategy, and we ended up raising the most amount we've ever raised in individual appeals and developing new virtual challenges, record-breaking income for us. And then over in the hospital team, they were adapting services every single day, depending on government regulations and then NHS loading restrictions as well within the hospital. Obviously, providing a service within a hospital during a pandemic was extremely challenging. So our hospital drop-in centre that families would normally come to for a cup of tea and a play together to receive support and advice and signposting became our warehouse to deliver, where we kind of packaged up all of the food that we were working with the community hospital community nursing teams to deliver to the most vulnerable families that we knew of from the hospital. Our trustees ended up helping deliver some of that, those materials. Our chief executive ended up working in the shop because NHS Lothian asked us to keep our hospital shop open because families were finding when they were discharged, they were being discharged, they were so scared or logistically challenged to even just go to a supermarket to get some basic supplies. So that's where our food packs came from. They originated from that needs, and then they developed to supporting children at home. But that's why we were asked to keep our shop open, because it provides specific, basic goods. So across the board, whether it's services, fundraising, the finance team and the admin team in the charity, we're actually quite a small charity, but they all adapted to make sure that all the processes and and procedures and safe working practices, made sure that the organisation was still able to keep running. So literally everyone changed, everyone did whatever they needed to do to get to keep the organisation going, with the whole that whole vision of what do children need at the heart of everything we did. So every decision we took was, what do children need? How do we give them what they need? How do we solve that question? And then we responded, and basically the whole organisation just adapted to find the solutions. So it was a wonderful effort. So I guess that was our biggest achievement.
Thank you. Yes, I think adaptability is probably a common theme throughout all organisations, whether that's places, spaces, roles. I'm sure the octopus played a dual role in it as well. So yeah, okay, I think we've got Leah back now, so I'm going to go to Leah while you're here in case you've got further technical difficulties. Leah, we're just talking about your biggest achievement during the year of your application.
Hi, yeah, sorry, internet dropped off there, but I'm back. Yeah, I think, I suppose it's not one big achievement, it's multiple small, many small achievements. And I think a lot of the things that go completely under the radar that have meant, and all these kind of small wins that only maybe a few people know about, really, that has allowed us to keep everything going, so to keep groups running. And I think also just kind of reflecting on being able to sort of keep the groups going, keep the services going, but also all those small us to keep going with some bigger projects. So we've been working on community asset transfer and working with other partners on a local place plan for Wester Hailes as well. So keeping the big things going and keeping the kind of regular sessions going as well. And I think just local networks, I think someone else mentioned local networks and partnerships. I think without some of those local networks, so we've got a network in Wester Hailes called Living Well, and a new network called Go Beyond across southwest Edinburgh. And I think we would really have struggled to have adapted so quickly had we not had those networks. So I think that's another achievement, is just being able to keep those networks going, establish new networks, and kind of make the time and space to meet up with people to share learning and support each other as we went.
Lovely, thank you, Leah. Lots of nods from others as well, I can see in the background. Yeah, I mean, partnerships always existed, didn't they? But when you're forced into an emergency situation, things just happen, they just get done. And as you say, those things under the radar just made things happen. So brilliant. Okay, let's move on to Kirsteen, please.
Yeah, I feel as if I'm going to say something really similar, actually. It was keeping an eye on the small achievements and celebrating those, as well as the bigger picture, which is what Leah's just been talking about. So our biggest achievement absolutely was that we were able to keep going. We were able to cope with rising demand, increasing animal welfare issues, increasing people issues, increasing challenges around income at the same time. And we have around 400 people around the country. Our volunteering expanded from about 250 to 780. So many people were helping. People were doing such different roles. We had education officers on our helpline or out on the road. So the training, the agility, the commitment that everyone showed, plus the fact that we have a unique role. So we were faced with a lot of challenges other weren't. We talked about the puppy trade. We disrupt the puppy trade. We seize animals. We were seizing animals in massive quantities. We work with our partners more than we'd ever worked before. People were taking animals for us to look after, to rehome, to foster. The innovation shown was absolutely incredible, but the partnership shown, and for me, it was asking for help, asking the public to stay with us, telling them what we're doing, telling people about the issues, asking people to volunteer, going to our partners to say, hey, could you help us because we're at capacity and we need to go out and seize more animals and we need to disrupt the puppy trade. At the same time, it was about keeping an eye on the long term, changing legislation to make life better, continuing to educate, because that's what prevents cruelty. It's not about going out and seizing. You need to get in early and educate, inspire, support. And we didn't take our eye off the ball in that either. So for me, it was honestly so proud of. It's almost like a Team Scotland approach, to be honest. It really is. I know SCVO say never more needed, and I think that's what all of us are saying here. Absolutely, we have never been more needed. Imagine if we weren't all here doing what we've done. So that's, yeah, it's kind of like the whole thing. I think I can't really pull out any one bit because it's all just so important and intrinsically linked.
Hear to that, definitely. And yes, you're right, with it, the Never More Needed campaign has got a lot of traction across the piece. It was always needed, but now it's really brought it to the fore. So great, thank you. Moving on to Charlie from Scran Academy.
So I think, yeah, again, there are so many things. I think we had people, you know, there was a couple of weeks where I was getting a phone call roughly every 5 minutes from either an individual or a partner organization saying, you know, I need help, or someone we work with needs help, and can you get some food out to them? And these were people who maybe they were older, maybe they were young families, maybe you know, they were in receipt of the statutory council support, but they weren't able to cook for themselves. They, you know, they didn't have a cooker, or they weren't able to stand at the cooker. And just our ability to respond to that need, often same day, is probably one of our, it's one of our biggest achievements. But I think equal to that is our continuing commitment to supporting our young people, many of whom are, you know, in school for maybe a couple of hours a week, and they come to us for 2 full days, and they learn practical real life skills that help them to achieve what they want to achieve, often not in the hospitality industry, but, you know, learning about turning up on time and the confidence gained from delivering an event, or helping to design our Christmas hampers, and seeing, you know, the production of that. It's just really meaningful. And I think, you know, however much Scran Academy has been kind of transformed by the pandemic, which is something that's actually quite uncomfortable to say sometimes, our commitment to young people is at our core, and that's the thing that we want to be doing. So yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. No, and I read somewhere you got this a mantra of giving hands up, not just hands out, handouts, should I say? You know, where overnight, you know, people's day-to-day services vanished, you know, and you were there to support in a meaningful way. So fabulous. Okay, moving on then to Paddy, please.
Yeah, what everyone's saying is so relatable. You see me nodding along, and it's also reassuring to hear that other people struggled with thinking what's the biggest achievement, and what does big really mean. So for us, there was all the stats around, you know, coordinating 20 organisations to deliver thousands of food parcels, art packs, all different types of support that people needed. Someone mentioned logistics earlier. That's a huge issue in Castlemilk. It's technically a food desert. There is no supermarket. So overnight, people couldn't get the food that they needed for themselves and their families. There's higher than average health inequalities, so more people than average were having to shield. So there was a huge amount of support needed, as well as all the digital inclusion stuff kind of spoke about earlier. And amongst all that, as a housing association, we had big, huge pieces of work going on. We had housing development that had to get paused and then started, then paused. We had huge bits of funding that we had to rewrite the applications, reprofile our funding, all those pieces of work. But it's the other stuff that other people have spoken about as well, underlying all that, the day-to-dayness of it all. And I think when I was reflecting on this, I think a big achievement for us is that we did keep it meaningful participation, and it was doing with rather than doing to. So we created opportunities for people to get involved. Similar to what Charlie was saying, was multiple phone calls. I need support, but a lot of the time it was, I want to help in my own community. How do I support my neighbours? And an example being a guy saying, you know, I've had 3 heart attacks, I've got asthma, I can't actually walk up the hill, but I'm coming to pack a bag of food. So for us, it wasn't saying, no, you can't. It was, we created ways for people to get involved, where we would buy art materials in bulk. We would deliver them to people's doors and say, can you make up to 100 art packs, the wee ones? We'll pick them up and then we'll quarantine them and put them in the bags. similar with like posters where people were saying, I want to volunteer. We were saying spreading the word is as valuable as delivering a bag of food. We need you to tell your neighbours, to tell your friends, to put up posters, to keep people informed so they know what support's out there. We continued obviously with our board, which is mainly tenants, leading the direction of what we do. We've got other tenant groups. Our youth advisory panel still met weekly to advise us on what we were doing, to make sure we were hearing the right things, that we were responding in the right way. Got a community advisory panel that was launched who are scrutinising all our services and processes. We had volunteer development sessions online for people to co-design how that programme is going to look in upcoming years. We developed a wellbeing community chest. We were really inspired by, everyone would have seen this in their own kind of geographical communities, you know, street bingo or games out the window. And we had a wee one who was hand-drawn, colouring in books to deliver to our neighbours. And we thought, God, there's a million amazing ideas out there. How can we get funding to support people to make their own community development project? So we got the funding. I say that as if it's just an overnight process, but we applied for multiple funding pots. We got some, created a panel of community members who received these ideas, recommended improvements or connected them with other individuals who also had similar ideas to create kind of groups. And our role was to support it to be a kind of community development project. So there's loads of stuff happening in the community that we think was meaningful participation, which I know was a kind of struggle for some people because you couldn't get people in person. So for us, that was a big achievement because we were also doing all the other big pieces of work and running around and delivering food and showing people how to use Zoom through the window and all the ridiculous situations you found yourself in. So organisationally, yeah, tenants and community members are still steering the direction and making decisions on quite substantial bits of funding and projects that were coming in, so that we were definitely involved in them.
Brilliant, thank you, Paddy. I mean, these stories, you know, there's, when you hear them out loud, it's just so much more impactful than seeing them written down on paper. It's true active citizenship that, and we all saw it happening in communities, so fabulous. Okay, and over to yourself now, Kathleen.
My heart goes out to you, Paddy, after trying to set my mum up in Zoom through a window. That's not an easy task. Our biggest achievement would have to be changing to a delivery service. In that instant they made that announcement, we lost 200 volunteers due to shielding. So everything changed for us. The whole process of making packs to actually taking it to people's doors and setting up the food network at the same time. And we did over 6,000 deliveries in that first year between the two of them. Unbelievable. Our team and new volunteers and old volunteers all came together. And like we said, we had people splitting up things in houses and bringing it back. And it was just amazing to see everything changing. But for our team to then go, well, we still need to push forward with the poverty problem. What else are we going to do? Was unbelievable as well. And setting up the debt centre and pushing forward with the food network. Incredible.
Brilliant, thank you. I know volunteers is such a big theme throughout all of this, whether, as you say, old, new, continuing volunteers, and then using their voice to determine what happens next. So powerful. Lovely, oh, wow, it's amazing stories. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to push us on quickly to a little bit about a kind of lesson that you learned along the way, something that you can impart to others listening today about what you learned from the activities that you undertook throughout the 12 months of your application period. So let's go back to Leah.
Hiya. I suppose our main lesson was that it's really useful just to kind of keep going and keep adapting. We've reflected a few times on the fact that because we never stopped, we never furloughed. Well, we furloughed very minimally in January, but we didn't furlough staff, and we just thought actually we're better off just keeping going. And although that was really challenging, It's meant that then when we were looking to restart face-to-face groups and activities in the building, we were kind of quite confident about doing that. Well, we weren't the first time not so confident, but the second time and the third time much more confident. So it's meant that we've been able to get things going much more quickly. So I suppose it's just that keeping moving forward, and that's something that we'll take forward into the future, hopefully beyond COVID. That, you know, even if you're just making wee steps, it's good just to keep moving forward and not be scared.
Thank you, Leah. Yep, we all just kept going. At some points, it was a kind of roller coaster, wasn't it, in keeping people going, but everyone did. So, okay, moving on to Victoria, please. Thank you.
Hi. I think our main lesson was our purpose is everything, and the whole ethos of having children's needs at the heart of every decision, every activity, every action, what was everything, and then having the team around us who believed in that purpose, who had a shared vision, shared values, who were able to deliver on that. And that's not just the staff team, as you say, the volunteers as well, and our partners in the community, and alongside the NHS as well, all different teams involved, and just making sure. It's amazing how quickly things can happen when it needs to, and just keeping that with us with everything we do. Yeah, purpose and vision and values.
And am I not right in saying, Victoria, in amongst all of that, you had a hospital move to do as well?
Yeah, so the hospital moved from the sick kids to the Royal Hospital for Children and Young People in March, and a lot of people in Scotland will know that the hospital relocation was delayed over a number of years. We had a couple of false starts along the way, and then they finally decided it was going to happen peak pandemic. So that was another challenge. And again, we put children first at that, and that's where the octopus came from, because obviously we put in Ollie into the old sick kids to explain to the children. That was why we were having to move, because Ollie was in the hospital, so we had to move because we couldn't compete with this giant inflatable octopus, you see, because no one was really telling the children or talking to the children about why they were having to move. And at that point, only the most seriously ill children were in the hospital. Everyone else, the hospital was deliberately wound down. But the last ward to be in, they were very, very ill children, so they were full of fear. They were having to be transferred by ambulance to the new hospital. So we another example of what we did was we filmed inside the ambulance. We worked with the ambulance service, and we filmed what the ambulance journey would look like, the journey from the ward into the ambulance, what inside the ambulance would look like, the actual journey they would take through the streets of Edinburgh, and then arrival at the hospital, and then so the children were able to see that journey before they actually embarked upon it without their families. So that's just a brilliant example of everything we did, was actually where are the challenges that the children are facing, and how can we counter them, whether it's providing a bit of a giggle. There was one wee boy that got out of his bed for the first time in weeks to see the octopus from outside the hospital, or dispelling the fear of being in an ambulance, to like greeting them at the new hospital with big cheers and lots of clapping and lots of toys and gifts, and a beautiful harpist playing in the background, and our arts team there on the wards delivering distraction activities from the very first day. So just everything we did was for the children, and we kept that at the forefront of everything. So yeah, it was a privilege.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And I know a few of you have mentioned videos and things. If there's anything you want to pop in the chat with links to anything, or anything you want to share, please do. With those watching, please do. So let's move on then to Kirsteen.
That's so lovely. That's so lovely, the things that you said, Victoria. Really similar for us, actually. I would say lesson was around be really clear on your purpose, set your direction, how you're going to get there, what your absolute focus is going to be, communicate that to everybody all the time, but not just one way. So I did quite a lot of face-to-face, as well as all the videos and different things. We set up new communication channels to make sure we did that, and then keep going. Just stick to the course, because things are going to change, and you need to be agile and adapt, and you have far more resilience than you think you do. And even on a bad day, you can get through that if you just stick to your purpose and your cause. You keep communicating with people, you keep listening to people, and that it goes beyond the team, the volunteers, that's your supporters, the people who are doing so many amazing things for you every single day, the partners, the partnerships for me, not just in animal welfare, there's such a connection between human welfare and animal welfare. So all the people we worked with were amazing to make sure we continue to reach all the people we needed to. So definitely for me, it's around that, just having that absolute lesson, that clarity of where you're going, and make sure you take people with you on that. It's not, there's some saying about, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with lots of other people. And it was that bit, definitely the community spirit.
There's no denying that everybody here has taken people with them along the way, Kirsteen. So yeah, brilliant, thank you. All right, Charlie.
Our biggest lesson was around working in partnership with other organizations. So like I said before, we were a really small team, so we wouldn't have been able to have the impact that we did if we hadn't worked with other people. And I think central to that is this desire that we have to not duplicate existing services. So we ended up bringing in other organizations that were doing in the early days, doing very similar things to us, and doing it together. We made use of local resources, such as a couple of private schools that were just sitting empty, and using their catering facilities, community transport organizations that did the bulk of the deliveries across the city, and then other third sector organizations just helping to coordinate everything and produce food and sending it out. And then kind of a step out from that was our ability to work with others to signpost and refer service users to other services. So we were doing food, but there were organizations out there doing, hygiene products and, financial support and mental health support that we were not able to do, we were not qualified to do. And just being able to work closely with other organizations to do that was really important. And then finally, just again, the community response, the people's willingness to come and get involved, all the way from people who would be traditionally kind of known as service users coming and helping us portion, to MSPs and MPs maybe looking for a little bit of a PR boost, but actually putting them hard, making them work hard for it, as it were. And just doing it together with people. That's what we learned. That's the most important thing.
Spot on, Charlie. Yes, integrating services that way. I think we can demonstrate the best innovative supply chains out there at the moment. So let's move on to Paddy.
Yeah, again, just completely relate to what everyone's saying, that we had so many lessons personally and organisationally across the past wee while. Partnership working is something we've done, we all have to do if you work in kind of community development, but the lesson was how essential it definitely is, how there's maybe different understandings of what partnership working is and the challenges that come with that. But I think when I was again reflecting on this, the biggest lesson is probably moving forward, not waiting for something like a global pandemic to really consider our services, both internally, how we work with each other, how do our services reach people, what are our processes, who says it has to be like that, how can we do things better. And we were all forced to think about those things and really consider them. And for us, a lesson is how do we keep those, how do we create spaces for reflecting on that isn't, creating another pandemic, please. So yeah, whilst it's something we've always been committed to, I think the real lesson was the kind of big, who says we have to do it like that, and let's think creatively around it. And amongst all that was, and I'm sure everyone can relate as well, with the pandemic, there was every single staff member revealed a hidden skill set that they've got. Everyone was surprised by themselves, but also this pandemic meant that folk were like, oh, do you know, I'm actually brilliant at logistics. Who knew I could do a really good development workshop online? And I think creating spaces for every single staff member to challenge themselves, to reveal hidden skill sets, to use their full potential was, again, kind of related to something Charlie said, there's a discomfort in saying, you know, that was great throughout the pandemic, but I think moving forward, it's how do we make sure every staff is celebrated in that way, and how we can all reach our full potential, because then ultimately we're working better for the people we work alongside.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paddy. And I'm sure nobody had a global pandemic on their risk register. So I'm sure plenty do now. Okay, and lastly, Kathleen.
I think our biggest lesson was communication. We very quickly realised that we had lost 200 volunteers, but actually communicating, they still wanted to know everything that was happening. So we actually had a team of people phoning around all the volunteers and sending them newsletters, which was great because it means that they still feel involved. I think when the pandemic kicked off, we thought it would maybe be 6 weeks and it would all be by. I don't think anybody realised how long this was going to go. And I think at the start, it was very easy just saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. But then all of a sudden, you realise you're 3 months into this and nobody's had a day off. So I think a big lesson was actually looking after people, making sure that they had their holidays, they had days off, and they had time just to sit out if they had to, because some of the stories we were hearing were horrific. So you just make sure that they've got somebody to talk to, make sure that people trained up in mental health and there's somewhere for them to go and just take time out. So it's all about the people.
Absolutely, Kathleen. I'm glad you've said that, because I know we felt that way sometime. It's like, when's this ever going to end? And here we are 19 months on and we're still here. So very important. Okay, we've rapidly run out of time, but I'm going to ask for one more thing from you all, which is one sentence, if you can do it in one sentence, for one piece of advice in one line that you would give to organisations to celebrate their own successes. So let's go to Leah.
So I think just taking time away from being busy and celebrate successes internally as your team. I don't feel like you've got to do lots of public sharing of successes. I think celebrating them internally is the first step and is a really important thing to do.
Absolutely. Here's to when we can do that in large numbers safely as well. Great. Victoria.
I think for us it would be sharing the stories of the children and families in hospital, and that's internally in the staff and volunteer team as well as externally. So sharing the fact that a mum said that she didn't expect to be serenaded in the hospital this morning is just lovely. It's lovely to hear, and it gives us all a boost, and it's lovely for our supporters and external stakeholders to hear as well. So keep sharing those stories.
Brilliant. Yes, that's a powerful way of doing it for sure. Kirsteen?
I'd say don't forget to celebrate what you might think is small stuff, because every day there's reason to celebrate something. And for us, that might be an animal that's been difficult to rehome, that goes off to a brilliant new home, or it might be an isolated supporter and we've been the first person we've spoken to in ages. So what might seem small in somebody's day is actually an amazing achievement. So remember to celebrate all of it and don't just wait for an event or a campaign or it's also important because it's all about, I think Catherine said, it's all about people.
Absolutely. Small wins all the way. Good stuff. Charlie?
For us, it's just shouting about it. Anything positive, just tell anyone and their dog, whoever will listen to you about it. All of a whole bunch of our fundraising partnerships, the fact that we're even vaguely considered for this award is probably down to our somewhat down to our social media output. So yeah, just shout about it.
Excellent. Shout loud and proud. That's it. Paddy?
I think for us, it's having kind of open conversations about what success means, what it looks like, what it feels like to individuals, to teams, to volunteers that are completely essential to everything we do, and to the organisation as a whole, and how one individual's personal success is as valuable as organisational success, and how we celebrate that. Because again, if we didn't do that, then we wouldn't be able to achieve what we're doing and work on these really complex kind of issues together. So yeah, thinking about what success means and how we redefine that for each person and how it links to the organisation as a whole.
Yep, back to stories again, isn't it? And brilliant stuff. All right, Kathleen.
I think sharing our story of the charity, we've came a long way in a short space of time. I think, like many other folk, and actually getting folk to realise that and talking to people, and just especially the young ones who don't realise how far we've came. And as I spoke to someone the other night, they said, "Oh, I was busy," and I'm like, "Yeah, but we did 7,000 meals just in the food bank last week." Do you know what I mean? And you just work away and you just don't realise. And it's about taking time with it's back to my people again. It's back to people, just taking time with them and actually saying, well, this is where we've come from and what we're doing.
What a note to end on. Thank you, Kathleen. It's all about the people. Brilliant. What amazing stories, brilliant tips, excellent advice, and lots of nods and lots of agreements. What a fantastic bunch of panelists. So thank you very much for coming along today. I don't see any questions in the chat, and we've run slightly over, so I'm going to call it to a close there. But before I do so, I just want to remind everyone, please come along and join in the awards ceremony on the 1st of October, a week tomorrow. And that's where Sally Magnuson will be revealing this year's winners. Don your best dress or tux or slippers and jammies in my case. I think the link to join or to register has just been popped in the chat there. So thank you to everybody who's joined today. Thank you to everyone who's watching on catch up. Thank you to the SCVO staff behind the scenes who help and keep me right with all of this. And most importantly, thank you to all our amazing panelists today, and can I just wish you all the best of luck on the awards night. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.